Now, talk about things falling. It's time for the big old March Madness basketball tournament starting up, and here to talk about it, Steve Clark. There were some teams falling even ahead of time as the Big Ten tournament just wrapped up and in advance of the big NCAA tournament. Good morning,
I
sure
to you,
wish
Steve.
I
knew somebody who went to the Big Ten title game yesterday.
Good morning,
That
Steve.
would be me, Ron.
Hey,
that would be me.
Wow, how was it?
Well, it was an absolutely fabulous atmosphere. I've been to the title games the last few years, and this one was pretty good, just in terms of overall atmosphere, ambiance. A lot of representatives of the Big Ten stayed for the Sunday championship between Michigan and Purdue. And, you know, Dave, you said things are falling. Well, things weren't falling for the Michigan basketball team, but they certainly did for the Purdue Boilermakers, who at one point during the final stretch were giving up like 80-some points per basketball game down the stretch, not playing any defense, couldn't get their shots to fall. Well, the NCAA or the Big Ten postseason tournament for Purdue, things changed around, and it started for them defensively, and then they were able to get their shots to hit. And they earned their victory over the Michigan basketball Wolverines Sunday afternoon, early evening. And kind of a surprise, they were the 7th seed going in, so the 7th place finisher in the Big Ten winds up getting the number 2 seed in their South Regional. So it was quite an event and a fun ride home.
We're hearing you twice, Steve, so I don't know if you've got something on in the background or one of us do, but we'll double-check that. But, look, we ended up for our local teams, those represented here. We've got Ohio State. We have Michigan, of course, as a number 1 seed. A pretty good path forward. Ohio State, yeah, we have a pretty good game, a pretty decent chance entry-level game as we play TCU, a little bit favored there. But if we win, we're going to play Duke. So that one basically is over. But how's the tournament looking overall as far as you see it for Michigan and some of the other Big Ten teams? As you said, Purdue now a very, very highly ranked team themselves.
So the Big Ten has not won a national championship since Tom Izzo won it in the year 2000, if you could believe that, beating the Florida Gators 26 years ago. The Big Ten is due, and they've certainly got a lot of entrants that are going to be a factor for this national championship run. Michigan's path, if they just kind of make it through into the semi-regional final, they could be playing against the Alabama Crimson Tide, who fields the nation's number 1 offense this season. And they also could perhaps, play Virginia. The ACC runner-up lost the tournament final to Duke by 4. Virginia's a really good basketball team. They're the number 3 seed. But the number 2 seed, Iowa State Cyclones, really good both offensively and defensively, just like the Wolverines are. And Iowa State and Michigan both beating Purdue at Mackey Arena during the regular season. Iowa State nearly knocking off the Big 12 champions, Arizona, who I think a lot of people are going to pick in this year's, home bracket. If you're a listener and you're trying to figure out what team to pick, I think many people are going to be picking Arizona to win this national championship. Arizona won that semifinal game over the weekend over Iowa State at the buzzer. So that will tell you how good Iowa State is.
Now, if you were a bracket picker the last couple of times, particularly I believe it was last year, what we end up with? All number 1s and 2s in the final?
All number 1s.
So,
all number
1s last year. So you start picking those lower-ranked teams against the higher-ranked teams, and all of a sudden, bam, you're in trouble on your bracket. And then other years, you start picking all the number 1s, and you're in trouble. So, but it looks like this year we've got some really strong teams at the top.
Well, Dave, it's sort of like picking numbers at the roulette table. Whatever strategy you may have, may work for one, doesn't work for the other. But picking chalk this year, I think until a few weeks ago, everybody was willing to say, yeah, pick chalk. Pick Michigan, pick Duke, pick Arizona, and pick Florida. And this weekend's results kind of showed that those number 2s and number 3s are pretty darn decent as well. As I mentioned, Arizona, needed a buzzer beater to even make it to their final game. Michigan kind of struggled their way through their Big Ten tournament and eventually losing. And even Duke, won their championship by 4 points. And Florida, the other number one seed, didn't even make it to the final. They lost to, I believe, Vanderbilt on Saturday. So I think there's room for those 2s and 3s to get in there and, possibly maybe even the 4s.
Boy, and there's so much attention, and of course, it's my favorite time of year for basketball because I really enjoy the college basketball a lot. Not so much the NBA or the WNBA, but to see these college players, they're so competitive. And when you see these teams rise to the top like this, and you see Duke and Arizona and Michigan and Florida, I mean, it really makes for an exciting viewing experience just for me.
It does, and I swear, I think the NCAA tournament wants to make sure Michigan State plays Duke because the Spartans are in the Duke bracket again. I believe it's the 6th time in 12 years they've been placed in that bracket. They've met 7 times in the NCAA tournament. That's tied for the second most matchups between two teams. 6 of those times were during the Tom Izzo era. So the NCAA loves the Spartans and the Duke Blue Devils. Michigan State could also face Dan Hurley and UConn. They've won a couple of national championships recently in the semifinals. Rick Pitino has won at St. John's, and so has Bill Self's Kansas Jayhawks. And, of course, Michigan State has Duke in itself in possibly in the final. The Spartans don't have the athleticism, but point guard Jeremy Fears, man, he is the real deal, and their lack of scoring and shooting has been improving over the last few weeks. But Michigan State may be playing in the toughest bracket of the 4 in this one.
So are there any women's, any picks for the women's NCAA? Did I miss that?
Well,
I'm sorry.
Well, that's a great question to ask because they do reveal the women's bracket about an hour after the men's bracket. And a lot of people are, seeing the explosion of women's basketball going on. I know that Michigan is going to be hosting the first 2 games in the women's NCAA tournament. The first 2 rounds are hosted by the 1 through 4 seeds. Michigan is a number 2 seed in this tournament. So both fans of the Wolverines are seeing both men's and women's basketball having extraordinary regular seasons. And Michigan will be hosting their first 2 rounds this weekend.
Exciting stuff. Steve Clark taking us inside the game. Thanks. Have a blessed day.
Steve.